The Chargers have a crucial game this weekend against the Broncos, who have won 3 straight, and one of the biggest keys to getting it done will be making life for rookie quarterback Bo Nix a living hell.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 9 seasons together, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen, and to make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Well, Daniel, the Denver Broncos handed the keys to the car to Bo Nix right away to start the season. And for the Chargers, if they want to come out on top in this game, they need to heat him up. They need to send the house and really make him make decisions before he wants to make them. And offensively, they got to get the ground game back rolling. Their first 2 wins this year, they were running over 100 yards rushing in each game. The last 2, less than 70 yards for each contest. So you got to get the running game going. And we're going to finish things up with our bold in-game predictions.
Yeah, and there's some very, very bold predictions on today's show. We'll see if one of them can come true for us. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. David, one of the things that we talked about before the show as far as what one of the biggest keys are that we didn't talk about yesterday on the crossover was just about Bo Nix, right? A rookie quarterback. This is going to be the best shot that you have at him. I mean, still very early on in his career. Next time you play him, he'll have kind of game tape against your defense, but they don't right now. And Jesse Minter has led the top unit in the NFL for a reason. One of the biggest things is his ability to be able to confuse the opposing quarterbacks, being able to dial up the right things on third down, and being able to make bad quarterbacks look bad. I mean, if you think about, look at, Gardner Minshew, obviously look at what they did to Bryce Young. They got him benched. This is another guy that kind of falls more in the Bryce Young category than he does the Patrick Mahomes category, and those are 2 of the only quarterbacks we've seen them go up against so far. Obviously, Bo Nix has been better than that, and I don't want to disrespect him, but he's still a rookie quarterback playing in his 6th game in the NFL, and I think when you're looking at the common denominators of the Broncos' losses, there's one thing that sticks out with a bright red mark, and that's the fact that Bo Nix in each of their losses this year has thrown 2 interceptions, right? If he throws interceptions, they lose this season. That's about as simple as it gets. And I think for the Chargers, it's how do we make that happen? How do we confuse him? How do we put him in bad situations? Because if they can get to him, it's going to change the complexion of the game.
It definitely will. When you look at the stats regarding Bo Nix and how he handles pressure, he doesn't handle it very well. His completion percentage under pressure is 42.2%, which is awful. So the Chargers want to confuse him, make him have to process, when the pressure is coming from, trying to figure out where the pressure is coming from, speed him up, make him make decisions before he wants to make those decisions, make him get rid of the ball before he's ready to, and also hit him as much as you possibly can. So that way later on in the football game, he is feeling it. And there's going to be some great opportunities to hit him. The Raiders also sacked him 3 times last week. So he's a little susceptible, and his offensive line is banged up. Both the starting center and their starting right tackle have not practiced all week, and they are trending towards not playing in this contest. So that endeavor of getting pressure on Bo Nix became a little bit easier.
It should, right? You have to definitely take advantage of it. I think another big part of this game is tipped and batted balls, right? Because it doesn't even necessarily have to be Bo Nix's fault for it to kind of damage him mentally, right? And have him second guess things, right? If you can bat a ball at the line of scrimmage and have it tip up into the air and turn into an interception, that can change the complexion of this whole game. So I think that getting your hands up, being able to send those slot blitzes and get guys in the passing lane is going to be huge. And just the general kind of disguises they use against a rookie quarterback. Jesse Minter has not been kind to not, Justin Fields towards the end of the game obviously gets a big chunk touchdown. but they were pretty much handling him before the defense was on the field for the entirety of the second half. So Jesse Minter, is going to come up with a heck of a plan for this, but I do agree with hey, take advantage of those offensive line injuries, right? Their starting center, Luke Wattenberg, and the thing about the right tackle is he's not their starting right tackle. He's their backup right tackle that's not playing in this game. Mike McGlinchey's still on injured reserve. This is the guy that was filling in for them. So that means you're going up against their third string right tackle in this game potentially, because Alex Palczewski has not played so far this week at all and has not participated in any sort of practice. So both of those guys, center and right tackle, both DMPs. You have Alex Forsythe, who has played 3 snaps his entire career. That's who their center is lining up to be on Sunday. You have to take advantage of that, right? Matt Pert is someone that was okay in the last game once he took over, but his years in New York were not great. I mean, as a former third-round pick, he got shipped out of New York. They weren't trying to bring him back. And now, after, being the third string tackle, he's going to be forced into action. Kansas City absolutely exploited the Chargers when they were missing both their tackles last week. If you want to be a good team, those are the kind of matchups that you have to be able to exploit. What other keys do you have, David, offensively?
Yeah, so I think one of the things to kind of keep in mind, 2 things. Is Bo Nix will run. I mean, they definitely will utilize him in the running game. He has 31 carries for 119 yards. That's a little over 6 carries per contest. So they are going to get him involved. And he also has 3 rushing touchdowns. So definitely pay attention to it when it comes to the red zone. If the Broncos get there, there haven't been a lot of teams that have been able to get there against the Chargers so far. They will involve Bo Nix in that running game. So he has the second longest run of the season for the Broncos. So that is something to pay attention to. And obviously, when you're looking at, the targets, Cortland Sutton is by far their number 1 target, and he has been targeted a lot. 41 targets, but only 17 receptions. So they're looking for him a lot. They haven't found a lot of success, but he has the most success on the team, 224 yards and a touchdown. And their number 2 wide receiver, Josh Reynolds, has missed practice also Wednesday and Thursday. So it's not looking like he is going to be playing in this contest. So pay attention to where Cortland Sutton is at all times. They are always going to be looking at trying to get him the football.
Yeah, you would assume that Christian Fulton gets that matchup, or at least as much of it as he can. He was able to practice fully on Thursday, which is great news. I mean, him and Asante both on the practice or the injury report, both practicing fully on Thursday. And yeah, I mean, we saw last week the Chargers did a great job of corralling Patrick Mahomes when they needed to, and they really never let him get out of the pocket, didn't really give any loose plays up. And I think that'll be big again against Bo Nix, especially because last week they did it without Joey Bosa. This week, part of, heating up Bo Nix and being able to rack shop for a rookie quarterback, all of those things, they're going to have to be able to do it again without Joey Bosa, likely, because he hasn't practiced all week so far either. So it's going to be big. And I think corralling him, keeping him in the pocket, I mean, he will kind of self-destruct and take sacks. I mean, that is a big part of it. So I think the other thing, last thing here I'll touch on is just dominate on third downs, right? This is a team you should absolutely be dominant against on third down. They have only converted 24.6% of their third downs in 2024. That's the 31st rank in the league.
They punt more than anybody in the league. Yeah,
they punt more than anyone in the league. They have the worst third down percentage of anyone in the league. And I think the big thing here is just try to force as many of them as possible, right? Like, just because you give up a pass in front of you, like, it's very important for you to have a 3rd and 1 as opposed to, that guy getting 2 extra yards and getting that first down. So I think that, hey, force as many of them as possible. Do not bail them out with penalties. Make them earn it. And I think the Chargers defense should be very familiar with this offense. Their offensive coordinator is Joe Lombardi. A lot of these guys went up against that offense a lot of times in practice. Obviously, it's a little different with Sean Payton. And I think the other thing is just you can't allow the big plays, right? Sarah Badger talked about it yesterday. Hey, they want to try to connect on those. They haven't been able to so far. Make them earn it 1 inch at a time. And they will, right? I mean, Bo Nix, they will throw a lot of passes, right? They will give you an opportunity to potentially turn them over. And with all these quick passes against the Jets in the first half, he had 7 completions for -7 yards, just to show you some of the short passes.
5.1 yards per pass attempt. They're not throwing it very far.
But 7 for -7 is a little different. That's -1 yards per pass attempt.
That's terrible.
So we've also seen from the Chargers, those, right, after being pretty buttoned up over the first couple of weeks, 50-plus yard touchdowns allowed in each of the last 2 games. One to Xavier Worthy, one at the end of the Steelers game, right, to Calvin Austin, which obviously they're exhausted, but still, hey, that's 2 games in a row. They've been giving up some chunk plays. You got to button it up. Make this team earn it. If you do, they're likely going to get to third downs, and they're likely not going to be able to convert them. But offensively, it seems pretty clear what the message should be to this room. It's pretty clear what the kind of responsibility this coaching staff would be to improve during this bye week. And that's getting back to being able to run the football and run the football effectively. So they need to get the running game back on track, amongst other things. So we're going to get into all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up for Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. I also need to tell you guys about PrizePicks, because PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members, and it's one of the easiest and most exciting ways to play it as well, because all you do is pick more or less than 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. David knows all about it. He's very excited about PrizePicks because he keeps on winning at PrizePicks, and one of the things that we both love is just the fact that instead of trying to make a lineup and use a budget to do that and hope that the other team doesn't have 6 of the same players that you do, it's just you versus the numbers. It's you versus the PrizePicks projections. And one of the also great things for me and David is PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. For this weekend's game against the Broncos, you can make it easy. You only need 2. I'll give you 3. Justin Herbert throwing for more or less than 180.5 passing yards. And you compare that with J.K. Dobbins running for more or less than 57.5 rushing yards, or Ladd McConkey, who I like in this game, getting more or less than 42.5 receiving yards. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. David, let's get into the offensive side of things. I mean, I think we usually start with offense, and offense is going to be important. But I do think for the defense, they need to kind of dominate in this game, especially knowing what their own offense is going to go up against. And it is a tough defense that they're going up against. But the Broncos are tougher against the pass than they are the run. And that links up coincidentally with the Chargers really, really needing to get their running game back on track, because we've seen them struggle to run the football in 2 games. And they're 2-2 for a reason, right? Both losses. Every time the Chargers haven't run for more than 61 yards, they've lost the game, right? So that is something that has to get back on track. And I think the other kind of somewhat exciting part of this, even though it comes with bad news, is we should be able to see Kimani Vidal this week, David, because Gus Edwards has not practiced at all. It's not that I'm happy that Gus Edwards is injured, but I am happy that hopefully they'll let him wait and get closer to the version that we saw last year in Baltimore, because it just feels like he hasn't been 100% for the entire season, not in training camp, not in the regular season. He didn't play at all in the preseason. So Kimani Vidal potential, David, here. The Chargers have to get the running game back on track, and hopefully he can help them do it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a real chance that we finally see Kimani Vidal for the first time this season because of that ankle injury that Gus Edwards is dealing with and keeping him out of practice all week. I mean, that's not trending towards him being able to play in this game. And this is a great matchup for the Chargers. Last week, Denver allowed 4.6 yards per carry to the Raiders and 115 yards and a touchdown. So that's plenty opportunity for the Chargers to go out there and get back to doing what they want to do anyway, which is impose their will, run the ball down the opponent's throats, keep the defense on the sideline and healthy and feeling good and rested. So when they go out there, they can go out there and do their thing. And also keep the Chargers ahead of the sticks and on schedule, which is so extremely important for this offense. Got to stay ahead on first and second down. So you're in those 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4 situations instead of your 3rd and 8 and plus situations, which the Broncos did a great job of putting the Raiders in last week. And the Chargers were also in those situations a lot against the Kansas City Chiefs. That's a recipe for disaster. Stay ahead of the schedule and good things will happen for you offensively.
Absolutely. And I mean, yeah, one of the ways you stay ahead of schedule is by running the ball well. If you're not running the ball well, then you need to adjust on the fly and stop running the ball so much on early downs in this game, if that's what happens, right? But yeah, I mean, we talked about in the segment 1, the common denominator in both Broncos losses was Bo Nix throwing 2 interceptions. The common denominator on defense for the Broncos is both of the games they lost, they gave up 140 plus yards on the ground, right? They've also given up at least 91 yards in 4 out of the 5 games this season. So the Chargers should be running for more than 100 yards in this game. That is supposed to be the strength of this team. But I think it also helps you do one of my biggest keys, which is beat the blitz, right?
Yeah.
The Chargers have to have a hell of a game plan. We talked yesterday on the crossover just about the interior line having to step up, the Chargers offensive line as a whole having to protect Justin Herbert because they've been so bad, 31st in pass block win rate this year.
Bad.
But you have to have a plan, right? Like, and that's the thing is, this is the good news though. The last time we saw Justin Herbert play a team that blitzed as much as the Broncos do this weekend was the Vikings. And last year, right? Week 3, Justin Herbert against the Vikings absolutely blew up, threw for more than 400 yards. And who did he go to? He went to Keenan Allen, who had over 200 receiving yards in that game. The Broncos have the second highest blitz percentage behind the Vikings. Like we told you yesterday, it's over 40%, right? They have the 4th best pressure percentage in the league, but the blitzes leave openings, and you have to be able to take advantage. So instead of Keenan Allen in that role, and I'm not expecting 200 yards, but I think you get Ladd McConkey in there, right? If you have Ladd McConkey, and you just have to know where you're going with the football, expect pressure to come right away, and expect that you're going to have to need a hot read to be able to throw it to. And I just want that to be Ladd McConkey. Get it in his hands, even if it's short passes, and let him go. Because if the Chargers don't have a good game plan for the blitz in this game, they're going to get cooked.
Yeah, and I honestly think that's going to be a good matchup for the Chargers because you look at who's in the slot. On the outside, the Broncos are pretty strong. They have Riley Moss and Pat Surtain, which are both playing really good, high-quality football. But on the inside, Jaquan McMillan is, a little bit more susceptible here. He has the most missed tackles on the team with 4. And obviously Ladd McConkey's fantastic in the open field. So getting him to have to go chase Ladd McConkey down in those situations, I think is fantastic. 103 of his 172 receiving yards allowed have been after the catch. So this is one of the big opportunities that the Chargers need to take advantage of. 2 other players that they need to attack is the linebacker Cody Barton, who has allowed 10 receptions on 10 targets for 103 yards, and safety PJ Locke. So if they can set up situations to take advantage of PJ Locke, they definitely should do that. 10 receptions on 14 targets, 101 yards, and 2 touchdowns allowed so far this season. And when you look up and down the Denver Broncos secondary, there's not a lot of touchdowns given up by anybody. So those are a couple of players that the Chargers should be trying to isolate and take advantage of.
Absolutely. And I think, it starts with finding those weaknesses, those chinks in the armor that you can try to exploit. I think another part of that too, where you can kind of help your offensive line out against this pass rush, which has been awesome for the Broncos. Keep the screen game going, right? That was one of your keys against the Chiefs because we knew the pass rush was going to get home. And it worked with mixed results, but the ones that worked. The ones that popped very well. I thought they got away from it a little bit later on, or they just weren't connecting. One of them, Justin Herbert's getting hit and can't complete it to Hayden Hurst, or he probably has a 30-yard gain, right?
Oh, yeah.
I want to see that going. The Broncos have 15 sacks over their last 3 games. They had 12 sacks in a 2-game span in weeks 4 and 5 this year. So this is a very formidable rush. It starts obviously with being able to, sell it, because if they don't work, they turn into negative plays.
Right.
But the other part of this is we could see Kamani Vidal in this game. And I would love to see Kamani Vidal get a couple of screen passes because he got a lot of them in college. And when he got them,
really good.
He made people miss, and he made big plays happen. I think the last thing for me, don't help out the Broncos offense, right? In a game that's going to be a defensive slugfest like this, you just can't help them out. The Chargers have been great. They've only had 1 game where they've turned the ball over at all, right? 1 interception, one fumble so far this year. Patrick Surtain had a pick 6 last week.
Yep.
It's going to be very hard for the offense to overcome those kind of mistakes, right? I think it's obviously not turning the ball over. It's winning the battle of field position and making them have to earn it offensively. And I think it's just also being better on third downs because the Broncos are awful on third down, but the Chargers haven't been great either. 21st in the league on converting third downs. If you can get a couple of first downs, flip field position in a game like this, it could be super important.
I agree completely. Also, I'd like to add one other thing. Let's not allow the penalties to take over and put them in those situations where they're having to climb themselves out of. Let's play some cleaner football. Hopefully those pre-snap penalties get cleaned up or have gotten cleaned up through the bye so they can come back and continue to stay ahead of the schedule, which will help them sustain drives and go put points on the board, which is what they need to win this game.
They absolutely do. I mean, it feels like another game where 20 points, like, thought about making that a key again. Just get to 20 points because I trust the Chargers defense to hold this the Bronco team to less than that. I think if the Chargers can get to 20, they'll be in good shape. But we still have more great stuff to get into, including our bold predictions, where one listener thinks that Derwin James is in for a vintage performance. So we're getting into all that and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. David, first I need to tell everyone about FanDuel, our favorite betting sponsor and the best betting sponsor out there, because NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And if you're making in-game live bets, it's so great to have all of the stats and stuff laid out right there so you can kind of get the flow of how the game is going so far. And also, you can get in on the action this Sunday. And somewhat surprisingly, the line for this game has held steady all week. The Chargers will enter as 3-point favorites in Denver against the Broncos. The great thing about FanDuel is that there's so much more than just the spread to bet on, though. Like the over-under, which is set at 35.5, which tells you they expect a defensive battle just like we do. If you don't get your bets up before kickoff, don't worry, because you always have those live in-game bets. And you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet on FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com. All right, David, well, let's get into our bold and game predictions, and thank you to all the everydayers out there for making us your first listen. If you need a second listen, though, make sure to check out the new slate at Locked On NFL, where it's a double shot of espresso, 2 shows per day in the morning. You'll need no coffee because you have Tyler, the madman, rolling. That's going to wake you up with his takes. And also, you can hang out and kick back in the barbershop with my guy, Tony Wiggins, as they get every host on the Locked On Podcast Network involved, the guys that cover their team every single day. But make sure you guys check that out on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts from. David, let's get into our bold predictions here and start with Edgar S., who says, bold prediction, Derwin James will have a legacy game after being suspended the game before. 3 turnovers, 1 sack, 8+ tackles. David, that was a big talking point yesterday. Just how is Derwin James going to be able to keep his aggressiveness, but also try not to get suspended again and hurt this team in that way? If he could have a performance like this after that, I think it would relieve my concerns about him potentially playing a more passive game, trying not to get suspended.
Definitely didn't sound like he was going to play a passive game when he was asked about, if he was going to change anything. He said, I'm not going to change anything. And I have to, kind of change that up because he used a little more colorful language than that.
He also said he doesn't want to keep getting fined $800,000 because no matter how rich you are, you're gonna feel that.
Right, that hurts. But he also said, what can you do? He's, well, I'm just gonna have to go lower. I mean, that's the only thing I can do. But he's not going to change his aggressiveness. And Derwin James has that all-world ability to take over a football game. And I feel like after missing a week, he's chomping at the bit to go out there and let it loose.
I mean, I would settle for one Derwin James turnover at this point. He hasn't really been that guy, honestly, as far as taking the football away. Maybe that's just the national recognition. Players, teams not going after him necessarily. But he only has 1 turnover since the start of the 2023 season. So he has, I mean, that's over the course of a year. This is 3 in 1 game. So I'd settle for 1 in 1 game. It's been 13 games since he's forced a turnover. I'd like to see him get off the schneid here. Let's get to this one from Crisp Lacrame, who says, I can't believe this is a bold prediction. Justin Herbert hits over 200-yard passing, and David, somehow in this wacky season that we've had so far, that does kind of qualify itself for a bold prediction because Justin Herbert's had 4 games and he's 0 for 4 on getting over 200 yards passing. He also has his stiffest test in front of him with the best passing defense he's played all season. Is this the game we finally see Justin Herbert put up 2 bills passing in a single game?
I do feel like this is going to be the game that he goes over 200 yards passing. I think it's great news that Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt have both practiced, Rashawn more in limited capacity, but even that's good news. And Joe Alt returning to full participation in practice. That right there to me is tied directly to Justin Herbert's ability to scan the field, go throw the football, find some open receivers. So I think this is the week where he gets over 200 finally.
The last thing you want is going up against a defense like this that blitzes as much as they do and does as much at the line of scrimmage as far as deception. to not have your tackles feels like a death blow in a game like this that could come down to a couple of possessions, a couple points here and there. I think he can absolutely get it. I mean, even though it's his toughest test yet, I thought he was going to get it last week before things totally crumpled around him. He probably would have had it in the Steelers game had he not got injured, and that another game where the offense just falls off a cliff and can't sustain anything for a large portion of time. So I think he could do it. I hope it happens this week. Let's get to this one here from Bruce Harbaugh Wayne, who says the game of kickers. Dicker goes 5 for 5 with 255 plus kicks. Chargers win 22-19. David, game script wise, this doesn't seem that crazy. I mean, if it ended up being a game where these two kickers were battling it out, I definitely wouldn't be surprised.
No, I wouldn't be either. And we know Dicker the kicker has the leg to be able to get this done and actually go out there and do this. I just don't know if it's going to be that many points. I don't know if it's going to be that many field goals. I think that both of these teams, we're talking about, one of the, number one, number two defenses in the NFL here, going to battle against these offenses. I don't know if they're going to be in position to be able to put up that many points.
Yeah, I mean, what is that? 5 field goals, somewhere around that. So in 1 touchdown, 5 field goals. I don't think it's going to be that many field goals, but I would say this. I'm going to say Cameron Dicker could hit a 60-yarder in this game. Give him a little mile-high boost in the high altitude. I absolutely think he could hit it from 60+, and I think that Jim Harbaugh would probably give him a chance if they're in position to. So I like Dicker. Like I've said before, if it comes down to a battle of kickers, I'm always going to like my Dicker, that's for sure. So let's hear what Athir has for us this week as he's called in with a bold prediction as well.
Dan, David, this is your boy Athir. My bold prediction for Sunday. Chargers will unleash Herbert his first 300-yard passing and 3 touchdowns. Chargers make a statement and win big. Bolts 34, Broncos 3. Statement, baby. Let's go.
Past the 300-yard threshold yet for me, especially going up against the defense. But I do want to talk about, David, just what it would mean if they could blow out the Broncos. Maybe it's not 34-3, but I'd be impressed if they put up 25+ on this defense, especially since the only team they've done that against is the Carolina Panthers, who are one of the worst teams and worst defenses in the entire National Football League. So if the Chargers could put up points, I guess I'd be a little surprised if the Broncos only got 3 points. I think they'll probably be a little bit better than that. But that seems more believable in this scenario than the Chargers offense putting up 34. So if they could have a statement win where they're putting up points like that, that would go a long way as far as my faith goes in this offense. My faith goes in this offense that they've actually figured things out and made some changes.
I mean, that would be a pure shot of hopium straight to every Charger fan out there to see the Chargers go out there and dominate and have a statement type of win. I think that's what everybody wants to see, especially with a new organization, with a new head coach, with the new regime and all the new directions. If they can put it together and for them to do, a 30+ point game at this point, I think everything has to click. Everything has to go well. They got to have some big explosive plays. They have to throw the ball down the field. They have to get rip off some big runs. So if all of those things happen, man, I don't think anyone would feel any better about where the Chargers are in their regime change going forward if that were to happen.
And I feel like the only way a point score like that happens is if the Chargers get a defensive score. And that's why my bold prediction this week is really bold, because I'm going with someone I'm guaranteeing you're not thinking about right now. And it's Tarheeb Still, who ended up playing 42 snaps last week in place of Jasir Taylor. Jasir Taylor has not practiced at all this week. I'm going to say Tarheeb Still, 1 tackle for loss, 2 pass breakups, and a pick 6. I mean, he had a sack last week on Patrick Mahomes in his first ever start. He's shown the ability, especially in college, to take the football away, and he was good when the ball was in his hand, and he's shown the ability to bat balls. So, hey, a batted ball up to himself for a pick 6 in this game feels doable. I'm going with Tarheeb Still for my bold prediction this week.
Sign me up. I love that. I'm a huge Tarheeb Still fan, so that's fantastic for me. My bold prediction is that Darius Davis is going to have a 30-yard reverse or end around and a 40-yard punt return in this game. He's been a little bit quiet so far to start the season, but we know with him, it only takes 1 return and he can take it the distance. So I think this is the game where Darius Davis reminds everybody how electric he is.
Yeah, and I mean, if the Chargers wanted to try to jumpstart this running game by getting him out on the field and giving him a couple touches, you can count me all the way in for that. I know Ace is out there smiling somewhere thinking about Darius Davis getting so involved in the offense. But let's get into our game predictions, David. This is a tough test. I think people might be overlooking this one. Do you think the Chargers find a way to win the first game in Denver in so long?
It's been so way too long. It's been ridiculous. And the first time for Justin Herbert, because he has not got a victory in Denver at this point. But I do feel like this is the game right here where he gets it done. The Chargers, I think, are going to make Bo Nix look like a rookie. I think they're going to sack him 4 times. I think they're going to intercept him twice. I think the Chargers are going to go over 100 yards rushing again for the first time in a couple of games. And I think Herbert's going to go throw over 230 yards. I'm going 240 passing yards. I think the Chargers win this one 20-10.
Yeah, I mean, first time since 2018. Sign me up for that. That would be awesome if they can get it done. I do also see a low-scoring game. I'm not far off from you. I have it being Chargers 20, Broncos 16. I think part of the reason is I have them getting a defensive score in this game from Tarheeb still, and I think it might take that in a game where I still don't have full faith in this offense to, actually put together consistent enough drives and be dynamic enough to go put up 20-plus points on their own. I think they'll need a little bit of help in this one. And guess what? They have a great opportunity to prove me wrong, right? I want to have faith in this offense. They should be able to do more than what they've been doing. They've had a bye week to have extra preparation for this team they're going up against. Go make a statement. Go score some points, because I've heard about enough, at least as far as what the excuses have been for this offense so far. It has to get better. You have Justin Herbert. These performances are unacceptable when you're scoring back-to-back 10-point games. That's just not going to do it. You can still run and pass the ball effectively even if you're a run-heavy team. Go get it done against a very good defense, and that would, I think, send shockwaves around the league if this offense can start humming and that defense can continue its dominance. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. Make sure you guys are back here with us on Sunday for the live post-game show where we break it all down, and you can do that by following us wherever you get your podcast from, and also subscribing or following for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, and finding the show every day where we'll post the live show out on all of our social media, on Twitter at Locked On LAC, on our Instagram at Locked On Chargers, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. You can also find it on both of our Twitters, for me at Dan Talk Sports and David Drogemeyer at Dro Talk SD. But huge one. If they can win this weekend, they might be able to get something rolling, and I think it changes the trajectory of the season. I think this is a huge game, and the Chargers should absolutely win it. So hopefully we're back here talking about a big-time win on Sunday night. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.